up, everybody, and welcome into the H&M Trucking Podcast, episode 63. I'm your host, Marcus. Thank you so much for being here today. This is going to be a short intro because I got a lot to do today. We've got a lot to do today. We have so many people coming on this show. In fact, it might be a record of the amount of people that have come on this show. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Denny makes 7, I make 8, and then 2 more on top of that. My gosh, it's a big show today. We are going to talk about the freight market coming up here in just a little bit with Tim Krueger from JFL and James Fonda, the president of H&M Trucking. Now, we've heard a lot about, hey, it's turning around. Hey, it's not turning around. Are we throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks here? Because sometimes it feels like it. We're going to ask the source. James looks at these numbers every single day. James follows the freight market more than any person ever would probably want to. He is dialed in. And Tim, that's his whole job, man. He's out there. He's a third-party broker. He's looking for loads all the time. He's got his finger on the pulse of this transportation market. So we're going to dig in a little bit with them here in a minute and find out exactly what they think is going on. Or not necessarily what they think is going on, but what they think is going to go on maybe 6 months, a year in the future. So it's going to be a great conversation. And then I'm not going to spoil the surprise for the rest of what's going on this program. Just know that this is a very special edition of the H&M Trucking Podcast. And something that we had a lot of people come together and share their time with us to make it special. So I'm going to be heavy on the thank yous coming up in the outro of this episode, but I don't want to bury the lead. I don't want to spoil the surprise here in the intro. So look forward to our conversation with Tim and James coming up next. I am going to spoil one surprise for you, though, because we've been keeping it from you for long enough. I've been playing it very close to the vest on this show. I've been telling you, you got to go in and see Eve or see Sherry and say, "Stay fresh, cheese bags," and they'll give you something. That could have been an eraser that says no big mistakes. It could have been maybe a pen topper or like a fidget spinner. All those things would have failed miserably as a gift, and so that we didn't get you any of those, okay? But what we did get you is a very sweet H&M Trucking Podcast t-shirt, okay? In whatever size you need it in, Eve is holding them, and Sherry has access as well. So you need to go if you want a free H&M Trucking Podcast t-shirt, which, by the way, I'm the host of the damn show. I don't even have one of these things, so it's a pretty exclusive t-shirt. All you got to do is walk into Eve or Sherry the next time you're at the terminal and say, "Stay fresh, cheese bags," and they will hook you up. It's that simple. It's an awesome shirt. We had some very skilled and talented designers design this thing. They made a sweet logo for it, and it looks so good. And it's something that I think will really help the podcast. If you're, tooling around out there on the road and you stop at a truck stop and you're chopping it up with some other drivers in the lounge, they see your shirt and they go, "Hey, what's the H&M Trucking Podcast?" And you can proudly tell them it's your shiny custom podcast that you listen to every single week, and they should tune in too. Look at how easy that is. It's easier than pretty much anything other than walking up to Eve and Sherry and saying, "Stay fresh, cheese bags," which, while being easy, has a tendency to be kind of fun too. It makes them smile. So make sure next time you're in the terminal, I know a lot of you guys don't get in there that often, okay? Many of you listening to this are not from the Omaha area. You commute back and forth all the way across the country and never really get into Omaha. But I know that sometimes you'll go in there for a truck inspection, maybe a couple times a year or something like that. So if you're through the Omaha terminal, stop in, go to Eve or Sherry, say "Stay fresh, cheese bags," score a sweet t-shirt. It's that simple. And I want to hear about more of you doing it too, because we got these t-shirts for you. Let's go ahead and hand them out, damn it. We should have a whole fleet dressed in these things by next week. I know that's not going to happen, but still, go in, say the thing, get the shirt. It's that simple. Let's get to Tim and James talking about the freight market.
From Omaha, Nebraska, to whatever lane you're driving, this is the H&M Trucking Podcast with your host, Marcus Bridges.
All right, Denny, I hope that you did your homework for this one, because We're bringing in the big guns now. We've got joining us in the room right now, president of H&M Trucking, James Fonda. Welcome back, James. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And we've also got Tim Krueger from JFL Logistics joining us as well. Tim, it's good to have you back.
Thanks, Marcus. Always happy to be back.
Now, Denny, I actually did something I don't normally do for these two, but I was really excited for this one, and I wanted to make sure and bring my A game to the podcast. So I have a little open here that I would like to read to set up our conversation about the freight market today. So I hope you're ready, because I don't do this very often. So here goes.
I'm glad somebody got prepped.
Well, you see, I told you to do your homework. All right, James, was that Denny? Did he normally show up unprepared when he was working for you, or was he the consummate professional?
Well, good. Better than you.
Well, you've got experience with both of us, so you're the authority there. Moving on. Trucking added 9,400 unadjusted jobs in May, which is the lowest number the month of May has pumped out in the last decade. However, the U.S. economy has added 272,000 jobs in May, beating projections by nearly 100,000. Normally, this would be a good sign for the industry, but the sectors adding the most jobs are sectors that generate the least amount of freight, like leisure and hospitality, healthcare, and government. Freight-generating industries such as food manufacturing and metal manufacturing remain stagnant. So, gentlemen, it's been a while since we've had you on here to talk about this specifically. Based on these stats, the U.S. economy adding jobs at a rate that is a third more than what they expected, and trucking adding almost 10,000 jobs in the month of May, which is a huge month comparatively, but we're still seeing really low rates here. We're not seeing capacity exit the market like we think. So what's going on? What are we looking at from the top down right now in the freight market as it relates to H&M and JFL? James, we'll start with you.
Well, if you're looking at job report, you have to take into consideration that they average out what they speculate things will be into that number. So that the real underlying number is not that number. The unemployment jumped up a little bit. So take that with a grain of salt. What that number is, that 272 or whatever that number came to be.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing consistent decline in brokerages, about 300 to 400 brokerages close a month. You're seeing it's trended down. You've seen trucking companies leave the marketplace at the exit that I'm comfortable with. It's not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this summer you'll probably see that the summer freight kind of dries up a little bit. So I think you'll start to see that some of those smaller guys will continue to bleed out. You're seeing volume levels across pretty much every sector dry up, and so it's becoming, it's just becoming, I would say, more of a cyclical market now. Like back to what we would have expected. The Fed, I don't think is going to move any rates anytime soon. I really think that they should probably not touch anything until the election cycle, because even though it is independent from the White House, if they move it up, then they're going to say, screw you. If they move it down, they're going to say, screw you. And that just, I don't think that's good for politics right now. I think we need to get politics out of money. And so I think that's the soft landing, whatever they're calling it. I think that we are a healthy economy, but that economy has a lot of dead weight on it right now. Mm-hmm. We can specifically talk about trucking. The increase in equipment costs. Like I just renegotiated and got a reimbursement back on Volvo trucks, and I, as he said, I woke up a couple Mondays ago and chose violence. But it made it all the way to the top of the C. I didn't mean to do that, but made it to the top of Volvo North America journey. So my email, but there was a conversation before that email was sent, but the point was taken, right? Like we have felt taken advantage by the OEMs. You're seeing other OEMs continuously decrease their price. Volvo needed to get in line. And, they have that new truck coming out next year. So I know they're going to be pretty proud of that. So, kind of keep them on edge there too. So you look at that, you look at, driver costs. I've seen some companies out there lower their driver starting pay. Well, we are doing that. It's just across the board. It's just like, but, there are, on the flip side, there are plenty, like we just hired some new people in the office recently, and we're consistently being able to hire them at cheaper rates. And that's been going on for about 2 years now. and kind of battle back against that cost of living increases that we did. And, but not everybody gets to see all those moving parts all the time. I'm not going to sit here and explain my thought process and how I get to there. But at the end of the day, I'm also taking advantage of the marketplace. But like I'm doing it for the benefit of the company. And how does this play into that? Like there's just too much, right? And then you can say let's focus in on this person's doing that, or that company's doing this. Like I don't care what that company's doing. Like we're running our own race. We can't choose to run to. We aren't Warner, and we aren't a one truck shop either, right? So we are who we are, and we'll try to do that the best as we can. And I'll stick by the person, who it's be true to who I am at heart. I think a lot of people over the last year or so felt a lot of the weight that I pressed down because of that huge trade cycle, the continuation of this huge trade cycle that we started last January. They're like, and a lot of work changes the company. It's like all the. I'm not going to respond to every single comment. It's not James changes the company. Like James is doing what the company needs to survive the current market condition that we're in. And I think that a lot of people, office, or drivers, not even in this industry at all, are pretty naive and blind to actually how bad it's been and how well we've weathered that storm.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're seeing some of these Q1 reports and Q2 coming out, how much we've lost. We're sitting back and saying, we're just weathering that storm, and we're doing a damn good job of it.
Yeah.
So I think that prices will continue, but I say this lightly. I think prices will come down a little bit, but like at the same time, we can't afford prices to drop immensely at the same time because now not just us, but all those other companies that have bought equipment, all those companies that bought equipment over the last years. Well, I can't, if you're to say like, okay, now I bought this truck here, now it's here, and you're just dropping. And now I'm like, okay, well, this one's going to sell in 3 years. This one's going to sell in 4 years. And I'm never going to get the return out of these first 3. So I really yes, you need equipment to drop it, but I can't drop that much. You almost need to be like, you need to strength, which they've done. They're still restricting supply, which should help keep their numbers up and would deter. Well, it's not a bunch of trucks that they'll buy it at your own free will. But unfortunately, we need to wake up one day and see 5,000 truck companies went under today. And I hate to say that because I don't want to be that guy that says I need you to fail, but I kind of need you to fail, and that's what's going to stabilize the market.
Right. And so you touched on something there, James, that I kind of wanted to go back and forth with you and Tim on, because Tim's got the knowledge from the brokerage side to bring in here as well. And that is that you mentioned that, 300 to 400 brokerages are closing down a month, but a lot of the numbers that we're looking at are saying, like I said off the top, that really capacity isn't exiting the market as fast as what would be expected at this point in time. So I guess my question here to either one of you is, what happens when 300 to 400 brokerages exit every month, but the capacity doesn't exit the market with companies shutting down? How does that affect what goes on? Because in just my mind, which kind of doesn't understand it as well as what everybody else does, my mind says that means, well, there's less people out there looking for loads, but there's still as many trucks to haul all those loads as there were to begin with.
In 2021 and 22, you had a huge buildup of brokerages that got into the marketplace because of the low entry costs to get in, and at the time of the accelerated rates. So it was a really easy entry point to get in. So you went from, let's say brokers were 6% of the marketplace and they jumped up to 20% of the marketplace.
Oh, wow.
So there needs to be a correction. Those small guys need to get out. The guys that got in for a quick buck need to get out. The guys that went cheap just to get it all, make their rake and go. But on the flip side, that's going to leave a lot of companies that are exposed to those type of brokers pretty exposed. And if the brokers we use, we're pretty vetted. We're not, or CH Robinson's not one or something. Those type of companies. But and some of our customers on our van side, they Logier. Let's use Logier as an example. Kid Denny, I'm sure you remember picking up Logier all the time. The Logier is a customer, but they specifically work through CH Robinson. So yeah, we're going through a broker. That's because they require, and then they tell Logier that we want you to work with H&M. So there's a little bit, there's a mix and match, but as a large part, like, yeah, like, these tech companies trying to get into it. At the end of the day, like, trucking is very fragmented. We all know this. Like, right, we're like ranked, what, 373rd, something like that, largest company in the US out of, I don't know, 500,000, picking the number it is. I don't know what it's at right now, but I mean, it's swelled up to be like in the 600 or 700s at one. So and during 20, there's like 250,000 trucking authorities added. Yeah, 250,000, something like that. So that before we can have a correction, like, we've had line's got to come back, and it's starting to see it. You're seeing the graph start, even though we're down here, it's starting to align with where the trajectory would have been had 2020 not happened. So we're almost back to that, to where it's going to be under that bell curve, and then once we get there, it'll light a fire, right? But then on the other flip, like, if a natural disaster shows up and they're saying it's going to be a strong hurricane season, well, that might stop a bunch of people exiting the market, because guess what? Disaster bring profit. It takes capacity, it swells it, it pushes it to FEMA, right? Like, and it yanks it out, and then also people like, so you have if you have a I hate to say it, you have a good disaster, like, it really helps ignite things. But right now I think for everybody's insurance cases too, no one needs any more disasters at the moment. Because I'm sure everybody's feeling that homeowner insurance spike as well.
So dark on your side.
Oh, it is. I do a lot of reading. I think it's very lonely. So, yeah, I can't tell. My dad in high school bought me a Wall Street. I used to go to Starbucks across the street and pay for the wall. So eventually he just got me a Wall Street Eternal subscription. And I was like, I'm 14.
And you fell in love, and the rest is history.
Yeah, basically. But when it turns, it's going to be a different type of turn. And everybody says, like, when it turns. Do I think that's going to happen this year? I don't know, but I this part I really don't care, because we've gotten ourselves back to where we were on equipment needs prior to COVID. Like, we now are back in the driver's seat. When I go to these meetings, I got the cards on. A long time it wasn't that way. I was just being whipped around by the marketplace. No, it was just us. Like, you had no control. Like, I ordered 120 trucks in 22, and I count 40. Right? Like, it just, you had no control whatsoever, and then you're trying to navigate those waters. Where now going forward, like next year, in 2025 and 2026, we only need 37 trucks in each year. Like, we typically need 60 to 70 trucks a year, and also you're going to half that for 2 years in a row. Like, shit, we sit back, put our feet up, and go to the Bahamas. But that also takes a strain out of our personal operations, right? And you're seeing people, you're seeing equipment purchases still up on trucks and on trailers, but trucks. I think that next year you're going to see a major drop off on truck equipment purchases, because I think a lot of the companies are in my position that now their trade cycles are all messed up. So you're gonna see that dip, and that's when I think the reality will check in. But and like I said, yeah, it's a mixture of all capacity, but it's also a mixture of volume right now, and volume on the brokerage side and volume on the freight side. Everywhere. It does not matter if you're driving in hopper, flatbed, pick your poison, reefer.
It's tough across the board.
Yeah, everybody isn't the same. Everyone's walking through shit together.
Yeah.
And that rebound will be like, you guys didn't stick through us, so guess what? And for the most part, I can say during COVID, like, we have raised our rates to an appropriate level that we were seeing on the marketplace. But I didn't go out there and just price gouge and just say, I'm just going to rip you off as I can. It was that it matched up and aligned with where it needed to be.
Yeah.
The industry now is saying, when this thing turns, I don't care what we did, how fair we were. You guys have not been fair to us during this downturn, and you're going to feel that repercussion. At the end of the day, and it's the consumer that's going to be hurt, right? Like,
which is typical with any type of economic fluctuation, I guess I would say.
And it goes back to those conversations about tying in electric trucks, people coming in electric trucks. Well, man, my guy said, like, electric stuff is $450,000. They're like, well, just charge your customers. I'm like, I can't even charge some of my customers right now, and it's half that.
Right.
less than half that. Exactly. It's like, it doesn't work. And you guys don't want to pay for it. And the consumer doesn't want to pay for it, right?
Right.
Hey, everybody's still bitching about the groceries. Everybody's still, it just goes on and on and on. So there's still going to be a recalibration in the marketplace, and I think you're going to see that in homes. But don't kid yourself. All this is tied together. Like, it's not just one or the other. But I really think that the government right now is printing way more than we know behind the scenes. Obviously, we see the Ukraine and all that, and that's going to keep continuously driving up inflation and printing, for Israel and all these other places. I can tell the government says we're done printing. You're going to see inflation. That's going to be an economic driver for actually cause strain on the economy until we can stop. If and I say till we stop, I don't know when we're going to stop. So we just have just another dark water you have to travel, as Tim says.
Right. Well, no, you've done a great job in navigating of those dark waters, not only with the company, but in this interview, James, because this type of stuff isn't always easy to talk about, but giving a little bit more insight and understanding into why things are the way they are without parsing through every single moving part in the economy, I think is valuable. And Tim, I want to turn it to you here because there is one thing that I notice as I'm going through and looking at all of the forums and the Facebook pages that I'm friends with and just seeing truckers post on Reddit and things like that. One common thing that I see constantly is that drivers will tell other drivers, especially owner-operators, don't pick up cheap freight. Just stop doing it. Just go set your line at a certain number and don't drop below it, and that's going to fix the problem. I think half of that is something you could do, which is you can set your bottom and not go below it, but it doesn't really seem like that's a fix for the problem. Is there just always someone out there, regardless of how cheap the freight is, that will take it?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's situation is different. So, one guy might run his truck that I got to be at $3.30 a mile. Another guy who has everything paid off, fuel isn't too big of an issue, everything's paid off at home, and he could run his truck at $2.25. Like I said, everyone's different. Everyone navigates kind of load boards differently. If they can find their own customers, how they run anything that way. Because you could say, yeah, I'm in a really bad area, then you can't get freight out of, and I'm not going to cross that bottom dollar. Well, you might sit for a week. You could sit for 2 weeks. Like in Hopper World in Pennsylvania, you're probably not going to get anything out of there for over $2.30 a mile. And it's just one of those things that, they go, don't take back freight, but at what cost?
Right.
You either sit and don't make money, or you cover some loss and cover and mitigate your loss and make it as low as possible to get to a better freight area. But that's, a lot of it comes with networking too. Like find a broker that works for you or find a customer that works for you and can match the rates that you truly need. Because there is someone out there. For instance, I got asked to quote North Dakota to Montana for a hopper. And John asked our customer, said, hey, what's your target rate here? And she's like, yeah, around 100 or so a ton. And John looked at me and he goes, I don't think we're going to find anyone for that. And I was like, well, I know that North Dakota market a little bit. I have a lane out of there. And I was like, I bet I could get someone for under 100 a ton. Found 2 people, one at 85 and one at 90. Well, it's just, there's, I had 10 quotes at 135, 140, 165. And one guy, he's like, who do you have for that? He goes, I would never run for $2.60 a mile out in North Dakota. And I was like, well, the guy lives out in Montana, gets out to North Dakota often. It's another way he just makes money and he can make it to where it pays off in the end. So he had 2 lanes that worked and he made it piece together that way. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you'll make good money going out, bad money going back, but you also hear from other drivers. It's who started this head haul and back haul crap, like home loads, and you get beat up on the rate, like, because you're going home. Like another instance, I had a load out of Washington going to Minnesota. Rate was, for the market around 2,800, and I ended up getting it for like 25, 26. So it's just kind of like what rates work best and how bad someone wants that load. And capacity is at such an all-time high, or has been, and it hasn't dropped as quick as possible, that people are still trying to survive and claw and stay afloat, and that's what they have to do. And unfortunately, like, I'll probably get played as the bad guy, being some broker who's taking advantage of a driver or a carrier, and it's just the world we live in. And it's a dog eat dog world sometimes, and I'm kind of living in it.
Sure. Denny, from a driver's standpoint, you've been sitting here listening because you didn't do a damn bit's worth of prep, so you don't have any questions to ask. I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, what do what goes through your head when you hear Tim and James really talk in depth about the freight market right now as a former driver?
Well, first thing that occurs to me is it might be hard to compete. I don't know. These two would know more than I do, but I would think it would be more difficult to compete with, say, like Werner, a training company, where they're getting subsidies for training drivers. They can afford to charge less. I also know that from living in Florida for many years that it's tough to get freight out of Florida. That's why when I was running coast to coast before I went to H&M, I would grab a load of potatoes or strawberries or tomatoes out of Florida, go to Atlanta. And then from Atlanta, I could get a good load going out of there, I had a dedicated lane out of there, but that's what the guys did, even independents. They would get a load of some kind of produce or something coming out of Florida, get up to Atlanta or some other metropolitan area, and they could get a decent load out of there. It was just get the hell out of Florida with whatever you could. So, yeah, there's a lot of factors that play into this. I'd be interested in Tim's take on, am I right about the training companies? Do they get subsidies? Can they beat our rates and go a lot cheaper? Is that something we're competing with?
Yep, that is something to compete with, like the likes of Warner, who have such a high capacity, that have the ability. Like I just pulled up Warner. I think they have 10,000 drivers and like 20,000 trailers, maybe more than that. Allows them to be in more places at once to where they can kind of be a little harsher on the rates. But they're also, at this point, it's so low for them that they're feeling it too. Like you're seeing the likes of Swift and Knight and all of them like come back with losses. And they can't hold that for long.
Well, and Warner came out. That they're done giving cuts. They can't afford to. I don't know. Like I'll give out two examples. There's a company out in Des Moines that undercut us on a lane by like 20%.
Wow.
And I looked at the company. They're much smaller than us. And I looked at them like, how are you affording that lane? And you're going into a bad area. So it's Des Moines down to Atlanta. So and I know what's coming out of Atlanta. I'm like, how are you affording that lane? And so it's kind of like it goes back to, well, how are these guys affording? Well, you're seeing out there's a bank in Canada that does tons of trucking, very trucking specific. And if you're looking quarter to quarter, they're writing off more and more and more and more every year, not by millions. Mm-hmm. It's not like a small number. It's becoming but they don't care because they're still getting loans because they're making the margin on the interest, right? So now you're seeing these banks, not just them, but other banks saying, well, I don't want the truck back because I got burned in 21. So I'll just make you pay the interest, not the principal. Well, that works for you because you're getting 9-10%. They're marking up those guys. Those guys aren't probably more. They're probably paying 15-60% interest. These small guys, they don't get it.
That sounds like the title loan scam.
Right. And so as long as those guys are able to stick along and they're like that small company is just doing it for cash flow. They're not making money. They're just really if I can get cash flow enough in that the bank's not going to completely wipe me out tomorrow, then it works. Where, okay, how long is this going to last? It's been 2 years now. And I don't think most people are going to. It's been 2 years now.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I think it's going to be really into 2025 before we see a recovery. But then it becomes a new conversation. If I'm not getting the ROI that I need out of the trucking company, and let's say I'm 65 years old, 66, I'm on the verge of retiring, and maybe I don't have a succession plan. Maybe I do, but maybe the kids really don't want it, right? Well, there's lots of guys out there like that. And it's going to be well, I could sell this now and take it and put it in the marketplace and make more money in 1 year than I did in the last 3 years with a hell of a lot less risk and a hell of a lot less headaches. That, I think, is going to start trickling into some people's private equity got into trucking in the last 2 years too. And private equity is a roll it up, cut it, spit it out. Move. Get that numbers down. Don't care what it's for. And back in 21, you could do that, right? You could turn them and spit them. They're making both the bucks. But as an industry, like that's not trucking, right? Trucking isn't that quick. Like that's just a blip in time. When those guys also start to get out, I think that's when you're going to really start to see this thing truly move because, I have incredible risk, incredible amount of money invested in this, and you don't have an ROI or to speak of on it. You're like, well, I'm 35. I can ride this wave forever because I got pretty long horizon, right? But someone that's 65, no, you're kind of, your money's tied up in that thing at that point. You're either got an exit plan or a succession plan, and if you don't see much light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm talking about those guys that we weren't able to get trucks for so long. We'll finally be able to get trucks, but someone out there wasn't able to get trucks, and those guys are still behind, right? And now they don't have depreciation to offset it. So now they're paying full tax on that equipment gain, and they're going to have to replace that equipment at a super high rate expense, and they're going to have to borrow at a really high rate. Like none of those factors add up to success, right? I should stay in the marketplace if you're not in a cash heavy state. And so that's what I'm kind of waiting for, is just like at some point that bomb's going to drop. And when that does, thankfully we won't have to be offloading as many trucks anymore. Like we're pretty much past that main offload. And because I think that will happen. And then when too many trucks, what happens, trucks go to the market and drive down the rate because there's surplus, and it becomes that's a whole new wave of this.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, I don't think that my children or will ever have to deal with this shit that we've been put through. I don't think society will ever do a COVID lockdown again, just from the lessons learned.
Well, yeah, they might, but you could call it the Civil War lockdown because people ain't going to buy it. There's going to be riots in the streets. I mean, it'll be, I think that, let's see. Let me test this theory out real quick. Hey, Denny, I need you to put on a mask and stay in your house for 2 days.
I don't have a problem. I don't need to put on my mask, but I'll stay home.
Put it on, Denny. Put on the mask, Denny.
I feel very fortunate. Now, I was careful, but I never caught COVID until after I came off the road. After I retired, I finally caught COVID. But all that time on the road, I was just very careful. I took precautions, and luckily, I never did get sick out there. A lot of guys did.
Yeah. One question kind of pops into my mind here. You mentioned private equity, James, and jumping in when the going was good and it was easy to get in. There was low barriers to entry. When you combine low barriers to entry with private capital, which a lot of the times is kind of in a scope, at least unlimited, the money's just coming and they're going to keep spending. Is that one of the reasons that we don't see a drop in capacity, is because these private equity firms are so flush with cash that they will just sit there and eat the loss as long as possible? Or does that not really play into it?
I think it's more that these banks aren't shutting down as companies yet.
It's just the banks, not coming back for what
they're owed. There's just no one wants the trucks back, so they're letting them run.
Interesting. Well, you mentioned 2025 as a possible,
Man, I saw some rates for like 88 cents from like coast to like central to coast. Who's taking that? And it's covered.
It's covered though.
88 cents.
We saw one.
He's taking 1,600 mile load for 88 cents.
Houston to Los Angeles, I think we saw yesterday, ran for $1.19 a mile.
Wow. And somebody's out there to pick it up though. That's just right. It's running. You're not seeing it sit on the load board.
And it's not because they're making money on it. They're just trying to keep that. They're just trying to move it, get that volume, get that dollar rolling, and just keep going.
Yeah.
I wish that there was some big, light at the end of the tunnel. For us, there kind of is. Like this trade cycle was Everest for us to get back on pace, and we're down in the last 20 trucks throughout the rest of this year, and I mean that was a giant hurdle to get through, and I'm proud of everybody. It really was a full team effort to get that done. I mean, it was incredibly burdensome on the operations, like last year we did 110 trucks and sold 90 or something like that. Just think about just the bringing that other truck in to get that truck ready, get the other truck moved in, stopping that revenue, stopping like it's just incredible. It just basically made us like a tortoise, right? Like, and H&M is not meant to operate like a tortoise.
Yeah, right. You're
So,
more the hare.
well, I was going to hair, but I'm not the tortoise that just stuck. I felt like I was just stuck. Like I'm not out here trying to sprint and be something I'm not. But I'm also not here just sitting back but it was something we had to get. I looked at it and I said we gotta get through this. And this is a pill I'm willing to swallow, and we're gonna charge ahead and get it done. So and for the drivers, like they're all back in new trucks, which I know they love. We're back, and I can say you're back in your, we're getting rid of trucks going into next year. We're going to get back and getting rid of trucks at 450,000 miles. Denny, I think that you probably would appreciate that, not keeping a truck till 600,000 miles. Got to be something to it. So I would say I've had a lot of long nights in the last 2 years. So I'm ready for a mental break. And we've got a very good base set up now. Just I've changed a lot of things in the office over the years, just how we operate teams and whatnot. So you could say people would say, well, it's this. No, it's just the market, and we're fighting among. But man, I go to these meetings and I don't have to say anything. Everybody else is already bitching for me. So I know I'm not in the boat alone. But you look at our captive, but it's a full picture for us. Like last year, we performed very well in our health captive, and then in our auto captive, we're starting to get back in line with how we used to be. So when we are truly at our efficient peak, I mean we operate at great levels.
Absolutely.
I hear people comment all the time like, oh, it's this office, or oh, it's like, no, it's just the market, guys. Like
it's just the waters you swim in.
It's literally just the market. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like here, that changed from 2 on all miles on vans. Like when was the last time we were $2.22 a mile? Like 14. Like,
right.
And you're all making 60 cents plus a mile, and you're all making, and all the trucks are more expensive, and all the employees are making more money. Like it is what it is. And so we're in a position we'll fight forever. Like but I texted owner of Freightliner dealerships, the network that's around here, and I said, I know compared to others we're winning, but it doesn't fucking feel like we're winning. And he's like, I'm like.
And Denny, if you're playing bingo, 35 minutes, 20 seconds for the first F-bomb. I figured we'd get it way before that, but I had the under on that bet, but just because of the subject matter. And I'm going to use this, and sorry to interrupt here, but I do want to bring up a very important point, James, that I think you're making as you go through, and that is, I'm looking back. We talked about the freight market in February of 2024, and then we talked about it previous to that, October of 2023. And one thing that was a theme through both of those episodes, whether I was talking to Tim or talking to James, is that H&M's in a good spot. We're a healthy company. We're going to weather this storm. It might get a little stormy. We might see some storm clouds. You might not see the biggest smile on James's face every single day because of those long nights he mentioned. But here we are on the other side of that Mount Everest that you were talking about. Kind of the proof is in the pudding. We're a healthy company. We got through that, and now we're out on the other side, hoping to smell like a rose again. What do you think when I kind of sum it up like that? How's it make you feel?
Well, I mean, I get jokes in the office now. People say, like, "Oh, James is actually smiling." It's like, yeah, like what a world that was. Like Jackson was making a comment, like James is a pessimist, and Grant was like, "No, he's an optimist. Like he's a forever optimist." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm an optimist and a realist. Like this is the world that we're living in." I'm not gonna fucking drum up some lies.
Right.
But I don't look week to week or year to year. I look at what's 10 years look like from now. What's 20 years look like from now? How does that look for 50, 60 years from now if my kids get involved in it, right? Like that, and I've always done that way. I came from a family, my family's company was around 1909. So I've always, this is just how I am. And so you know, if you're looking at a 1-year return deal or 2-year return deal, then you're in the wrong company. You're in the wrong business.
You're in the wrong business. Absolutely.
Yeah, I enjoy it, even though that it's got its weights on me. I get up and I say, well, all right, let the fight begin. I made a joke. I fucking texted, excuse my language again. Here we go. I texted Tim and some other guys on Monday. I said, all right, this week's going to be a good week. I think it took about 3 hours. And I'm like, yeah, well, we just threw that barrel, lit that on fire.
That guy drove off the road.
Yeah. So,
It's ups and downs, right? Whether they're long-term ups and downs or short-term ups and downs, we're just riding the waves. That's all we're doing.
Yeah. And so,
It's the up.
when is the up? So,
Well, Tim, you were in Vegas last week. I mean, that's got to be an up, right?
Oh, that was an all downhill thing. Except drinking. Drinking was a great thing.
Well,
All the money I took to gamble on's gone.
Tim, my favorite gambling machine is the ATM at those casinos because I always win there, man. Not once have I lost.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's not true. I lost at the ATM once when the balance hit 0, but you know. Well, gentlemen, listen, we've gone almost 40 minutes here. We got a couple F-bombs out of the deal. I am happy as I can be, but I also don't want to leave anything on the table because I know you guys put some preparation into this. So, Tim, you've been sitting there just kind of nodding your head and listening. Is there anything else you want to add here from the brokerage side of things before we let you go?
It's still tough for us on the brokerage side. All we still hear is asset. We want to talk to your asset. At some point, I just want to be like, well, they're super expensive, or you can go through me where I can save you a couple bucks. But we're here to support H&M, and we're doing everything we can to get the rate per mile up and everything that way, even if when it comes to, hearing 1,000 no's in a week and you win 1 yes. So we're still fighting through it. There's still a ton of capacity out there that we're still fighting through. Hopefully Q4 is when we see that turn. If you don't see a turn, I think the freight market's going to take a huge dive and you're going to see capacity leave at an alarming rate. It's not sufficient. It's not sustainable. It's not going to happen. So Warner says they see a light at the end of the tunnel in Q4, hoping it happens because if it doesn't, we're in a world of hurt. H&M won't be, but you're going to see a pretty big capacity drop. So we're hoping for that. We're a brokerage that's going to be around. We're going nowhere. So we're just still selling ourselves, on service and on time, even though we might be a little more expensive, but you're not going to have to worry about your freight with us. So we'll get there. It's just going to take time. We're going to get through the storm. So it's basically all I got.
And then the trucking industry gets a smile.
Yeah, right. And I would say much like Vegas, 1,000 no's and 1 yes in a day, you'll take it. It might not be the best day, but you'll take it, right?
Yep. I'll lose 1,000, but if I win 3,000, all works. We'll be all right.
There you go.
And we've had some good wins in the last couple weeks. We've had some really good big wins. So there are some things that are ticking that way. So it doesn't feel like you're just constantly getting hit over the head and be like, okay, is there some light? Like, what is this life?
Yeah. Produce helps.
Yeah.
Getting into produce has helped us. Great.
Produce because corn, and they make whiskey with corn. So that's kind of just add it up, right?
we're hammering out a lot of melons out of Florida right now. Sweet corn. We're getting after it. We're gonna get some potatoes here soon.
That's great. I also gave Tim a little scare while he was in Vegas. I told him that Tim S was gonna switch over to recruiting, and I just dropped that little bomb on him, let him suffer there for a while, and he had a little panic attack. I didn't let it last long because I knew he had a heartache already.
I literally said, Kristen, hold my beer. I'll be right back. Literally ran out of the casino, ripping up Tim. I called James, like, what's going on?
Then his team wanted to screw with him, and I was like, no, guys, he's had a hard week. Like, let him enjoy this vacation.
So it's amazing. James, you do take a little bit of you kind of relish in dropping a bomb just to see it drop, but then letting everybody know, I'm just kidding, that wasn't a bomb, right? That's something you kind of enjoy? I almost feel like we've locked up here and lost these guys on the recording. I'm gonna wrap it up because everybody's frozen in place right now. If you can still hear me, James Fonda, Tim Krueger, respectively from H&M and JFL. Very much appreciate you guys taking the time to come on here today and join us and share all of this awesome knowledge with us. We'll bring you back on very soon and get another update, man. We're all hoping, we've got our fingers crossed. You know what? Let's wait for 6 months. Let's see if this thing gets better. And moving on now, we've got some very special stuff for you on the other side of the break. So thanks again to Tim and James. We'll be right back.
Got a few possible rolling roadblocks to pass on to you. The Harley Rendezvous Rally is in Pattersonville, New York. That's the 20th through the 22nd. Junebug Boogie in Cookeville, Tennessee, the 20th through the 23rd. The Electric Forest is in Rothbury, Michigan, the 20th through the 23rd. Motoblot 2024 motorcycle shows in Chicago from the 21st to the 23rd. Born Free Motorcycle Show in Silverado, California. That's the 22nd and 23rd. And NASCAR's in Loudon, New Hampshire for the Crayon 301. That's the 23rd. Y'all be careful out there.
Next up on our list of Father's Day messages here, we've got H&M driver Brian Whitesides on the line. Brian, really appreciate your participation here in our Father's Day episode, and I understand you've got a special message for us today.
I do have a very special message today.
Now, can you give me a little bit of background here? Who is this message going to go out to?
It's going to be going out to two of my stepfathers who passed, and I wrote a real good letter to Sherry about this.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll just go ahead and let you read it, and the floor is yours, Brian.
My Father's Day is going to be sad but joyful because I lost two stepdads who I'm close to. The first stepdad was Raymond Norris Davis. He was a true outdoorsman and loving father. The one thing I remember about him was he was always put his family first and make the best wildlife food there was. At the funeral, we played Go Rest High on the Mountain. Well, that's what he did, and he died August the 27th, 2006, the day he climbed the mountain. My second stepdad was Anthony Gay Pennington. We call him Papa T. He and his father both own a logging company, so we share stories about that and how my life was on the road every time I come home. I remember the smile on his face when I walked through the door and said, "Son, telling the story of the road." We also went fishing and caught some great fish. He went to heaven on September the 1st, 2022, and played his favorite song by Tim McGraw, "Always Stay Humble and Kind." Big RT always tell us that. A message to both of my stepfathers who's looking down from heaven is we love you and we'll see you soon.
Brian, that was a fantastic message. I got to ask you here, you talked about some of the memories there that you have. Do you have any real specific ones from your stepdads there? Anything that you'd like to share with us that you guys used to do together other than telling stories, or places you'd like to fish? Any fishing stories or anything like that?
Well, I remember with my first one, Ray, we would go hunting, and I remember one funny story. I'm pretty sure y'all heard of it. You ain't supposed to go hunting at nighttime, but we was going down this dirt road, and I was sitting in the front seat of the pickup truck, and I didn't know what he was doing. And he pulled out a shotgun, and he killed a deer, spotted a deer on the dirt road, and shot that. It scared the crap out of me. That's one of the funniest stories I remember of my stepfather. My second stepfather, there's some history to that because his father and his great-grandfather, they was in moonshine business back in the 20s.
Oh, okay.
And then when my stepfather's father, he owned a logging company, and they started out climbing trees back in the 40s and 50s and 10s. And then later on, they went big and started getting their company together and hauling Mack trucks and hauling logs to the mills and stuff. And I'll say the best time that I had with him was on a boat. We was out on the pond fishing, and we was catching pretty good fish. And one day we saw a gator, and I swear to Deb, I was laughing so hard because we tilted that boat, and we were both in the water with the gator in there. And I never got out of the water so fast, and we both looked at each other and laughed.
Oh, no. You want to talk about walk on water? Throw me in a pond with a gator in it, man.
Oh, yeah, it was fun, but we both miss them, and my mom. It's going to be a sad Father's Day, but we know they're up in heaven with tears coming down from heaven for us.
Absolutely, Brian. Well, we can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing not only the message, but some of the stories and everything. We hope that you have an enjoyable Father's Day, remembering your two stepdads, as it sounds like they were very instrumental forces in your life, and we are sorry for the losses of those two, of course.
Well, I learned a lot from my second stepdad, especially with trucking, how the trucking industry was back in the 40s and the 50s and all that stuff. And we're real lucky now in the trucking industry, the way they had this work in the past, with the no air conditioning and stuff. So it's going to be stories I miss, but we know they're in heaven.
Yep. And you're out there on the road still making your own stories. Now, are you a dad, Brian?
No, I'm not a dad, but I'm basically a dad to two nephews.
Okay, perfect. You're the fun uncle, man. That's the same thing I am.
That's right.
It's so much fun. You get to get in all the trouble and not have any of the consequences.
That's right. I spoil them and I give them right back to the parents, just like the grandparents do. I spoil them and give them candy, and I give them hyped up and give them right back to the mother.
There you go.
Yeah, well, I feel like we should celebrate fun uncles on Father's Day too. So I'm gonna wish you a happy Father's Day, Brian. Because
thank you very much.
That's that you get to do the fun part of being a dad. That's for sure. Denny, anything for Brian before we let him go, sir?
Yeah, thing that comes to mind, Brian, find it on Pandora or Spotify, but on Father's Day, you might pull up a song by Steve Wariner called Holes in the Floor of Heaven. Give it a listen.
Oh, yeah. Me and my mom, we both cry on that song, Holes in Heaven. Well, we play that every Father's Day since they passed.
That's great. That's a great
we cried
song.
on that song.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's a great one. I don't have any personal connection to that song, and that song has brought me to tears before.
Yes, it does. It brings you real tears into you.
Well, Brian Whitesides, be safe out there, and thank you again for coming on and sharing the heartfelt message with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having the opportunity to do this.
See you, Brian.
See you later.
Got another special Father's Day message from somebody affiliated with an H&M driver, and this one's awesome, Denny. Actually, we've got Angela Thomas on the line right now. She is currently hiding out in a truck stop trying to stay away from her husband, Chris, so she can record this message, and I love it. I'm all about it, Angela. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I understand you have a special message for your husband, Chris. Now, before we get your message, you ride along with him all the time?
Yes, I do.
That's amazing. And how long have you guys been riding along together?
Well, full time I've been riding on him for like 5 years. Before then, our kids were younger, so I stayed home. So.
Okay. And how many kids?
Between the two of us, 6.
6 kids between the two of you. Awesome. Well, Denny, as long as you don't have any questions for Angela here, I'm going to let her kick off that message that she's got.
No, the only question I'd have is, where are you now and where are you from?
We're in Missouri at the moment. We're heading to Arkansas, and we're from Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Good old Southern gal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the floor is yours, Angela. Anything you'd like to say to Chris for Father's Day? Take off.
I just want to wish you a happy Father's Day, babe. Thanks for always doing what you have to for me and our family. You stay out weeks at a time just to make sure we have what we want, and I just want to let you know that I appreciate you and that I love you.
Heck yeah. Perfect. I got to ask you, does he ever get under your skin riding with him for 5 years now? I mean, you're right there for all the stress that he's under during work and everything. Is there ever a time where you guys butt heads in the cab?
Not too much. Sometimes if we stay out too long, that lasts like 3 or 4 days. But not usually.
I get it. Well, when do you get to be home next?
Let's be home this weekend.
Oh, perfect. Well, Angela, have a fantastic weekend with Chris. And this will definitely play. He'll hear it. This one will launch the Wednesday just after Father's Day. So make sure he's tuned in, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks. That's Angela Thomas, wife of Chris Thomas, H&M driver. Well, Denny, far be it from me to let you and I get out of here without our own special little message. I've mentioned many times on this podcast that my dad, one of my best friends in the whole world, he's my hunting buddy, my golfing buddy. He listens to every single podcast that I put out on this platform and others. So I figure it's a high time that you and I send a little Father's Day message to our dads out there. I know your dad's around and a big part of your life as well, so I'm going to give you the floor here to send a little message to Pops for Father's Day.
Well, yeah, he's still with us. He's 92 now. Been in assisted living for the last few years, but he still gets around, still reads. That's his big thing. He likes to read. He's a writer. But back in the day, my dad could make anything. He could make anything out of anything, particularly with wood. I mean, he was a general contractor, built houses. He was a supervisor with the FAA for many years. In fact, I'll tell you one quick story about Dad. He told me, he says, son, I bought a metal lathe. Well, he'd been working with wood lathes and, wood for years. But I'm like, what are you going to do with a metal lathe? He says, I'm going to build a steam engine. Like, what are you going to do? Make you a little train and take the kiddies around in the backyard? And he goes, no, you just sit back and watch. Well, he had been a pilot and did RC quarter scale airplanes. He made airplanes, built them and flew them. And so what he did is he built a scale model of the African Queen, a quarter scale model of the African Queen with a steam engine on it. And he had the remote control thing. He'd go poof, 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 puffs of smoke. I'm like, all right, Dad. I mean, he literally made the engine for that.
That is so cool. I mean, it's just dads, man. That's a real dad thing to do. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to make it and you probably just poo-pooed it and then he comes out with something cooler than you ever could have imagined.
Oh, yeah. In fact, what I mentioned the quarter scale airplanes that he made. This was way back in the day. I'm sure they have this technology now, but back then nobody did. And, you built an airplane and generally built a cheap one because your learning curve, you're going to crash.
Right.
Well, Dad, he called it his buddy board is what he came up with. And he'd have a little control panel in his hand and that with a cable connecting it to your control panel. And if you went into a dive or something and you're fixing to lose it, he'd flip a switch and take over and save your plane.
Wow. So that's like
this is like 1970. So this was high tech shit back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a tremendous amount of respect for my dad. I really do. And before I turn this back over to you, I also wanted to mention both of my sons, Josh and Zach, are dads. And I just found out maybe a week ago, my oldest grandson, Elijah. Now, I didn't even know he was married. The boy apparently met a gal in boot camp. I got to tell you, when I went to boot camp, we weren't meeting any girls, so things have changed. But apparently he met a gal in boot camp. They ended up getting married. I am now, as of a few days ago, a great-grandfather.
Hey, what a great announcement for this podcast in particular, Denny. That's amazing. Happy Father's Day, happy Grandfather's Day, and now newly minted Happy Great Grandfather's Day. What a great addition to this segment. I had no idea. That's awesome. Yeah.
Looking forward to meeting the little guy. And that makes my father a great grandfather.
That's amazing. So 4 generations alive at the same time. That's something you don't hear very often.
Yes, sir.
Very cool. Well, we know you'll make the best of it, Denny. And I know it too. What we should have done here is gotten a couple of your sons on to give you some praise too, because I know you're one hell of a dad and provided for your family as well. So I'll just wish you happy Father's Day since I didn't do my job and do my due diligence and get a hold of your kids. All right. You probably look at me kind of like an honorary kid at this point, right? You're trying to keep me in line every now and then.
You're a youngster.
Well, happy Father's Day again, Denny, and thanks for telling us a little story about your dad there. And what I liked about your buddy board or his buddy board that he had is it kind of reminds me of the extra brake and the extra wheel in a student driver car. Where they put a wheel on and a brake on the right hand side just in case the instructor needs to take over. That's great, man. What an awesome story. Well, as I said, my dad has been the number one or one of the number one fans of this podcast since the word go, going all the way back to Unplugged OTR for 18 episodes before we even got to the H&M Trucking Podcast. And not only that, but all my podcasting and radio I've done over the years, my dad has been there. And some of the radio that I did back when I was on the radio here in Eugene, Denny, was not only not something I wanted my parents to hear, but a lot of the times it was something I didn't want parents in general to hear. Teachers, doctors, lawyers, anybody that had like that kind of upstanding echelon in society. I really hope they didn't listen, because sometimes it was embarrassing. Sometimes we were getting punished. You lose bets. You know how it goes with radio, right? We got to be entertaining. And one of the things that I want to say, and this goes to my mom too, who I also know is listening, but I just want to say thank you for never changing your opinion of me. I have done some incredibly outrageous things in public, on the air, broadcasts for the world to see. Some of these things are on the internet forever. Some of these things, they get forgotten and they go away until 20 years later somebody asks about it and you get to relive it again. And I always hope that the people that got something out of it got entertainment and made their day a little bit better. But I have to thank my parents for never changing their opinion of me and always supporting me 100%. And especially my dad here, because, he has always been that guy behind me that just says, just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep going. Just keep pushing. You'll find it. You'll get to the spot where you can do what you love every single day. And without that support, I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing for all the great dads out there working for H&M and beyond. And a little story I have about my dad that might give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of why I am the way that I am. My sister and I have been rollerblading in the garage, Denny, for hours one summer morning, and we got done rollerblading, and we took our big hunky plastic skates off, and we threw them in front of the door, and our shoes were there, and there was probably some snacks and pop cans and whatever else might have been littered. The garage was not very big. It was maybe 20 by 20, so it was good for us to just skate around in circles in there until we got tired. All of a sudden, we went back inside, and we got bellowed at from the garage from my dad, and he says, get back out here. And so he walked us out in the garage and he set us down on the step, and there was our pile of garbage in front of him, all our skates, knee pads, all that. He says, when I walked out here, I almost broke my ankle because all of your shit is in my room. He pointed at me and he said, you have your room. And he pointed at my sister and he said, you have your room. He said, the garage is my room. The rest of your house belongs to your mother. So don't leave your shit in my room, and I won't leave my shit in your room. And that was the end of the conversation. And there was a box that was built next to the door, Denny, that was a nice four-sided wooden box. That was where all of our shit was supposed to go from then on out. And it wasn't a problem without a solution. He gave us a solution, built a nice box. Hell, he built an addition on the house as a solution for my sister and I when we were in high school, because we always wanted to have friends over, and that poor man just wanted to watch TV without a bunch of high schoolers in the same room. So he's put up with a lot over the years, and I can't believe he's still my biggest fan after all of the things that I've said into this microphone and others. But to that, I say thank you and hats off for being able to put up with me for going on 40 years. Happy Father's Day to my dad, Les. Hopefully we'll get out on the golf course here very soon, because we haven't been out there for a while together, and we need to. But we do have another elk season coming up, so I'm really looking forward to that as well. And Denny, it just feels good to be able to say these things. These are things we don't say enough, regardless of how much you say them.
Yes, sir. I remember my dad sat me down when I was, I think, about 12, and he said, "Son, in 4 years, you're going to be 16. I'm like, yeah, I can do math. He goes, you're going to want two things. What's that? You're going to want a driver's license and a car. I'll help you get your driver's license. I'm not buying your car."
Yep. Denny,
that's my dad.
Yeah, it's pretty similar for us. My first car I bought when I was 14, 1972 Chevy Stepside, white with a Nissan Pearl clear coat, beautiful truck. Guy wanted $8,000 for it. I didn't have $8,000, had a couple $1,000 that my grandparents had put in a savings account for me the day I was born. And I took that money as a down payment, and my dad said, here's the deal. We're starting your credit journey at 14 years old. I'm co-signing a loan for you, but I'm not ever making a payment on that loan. So you better get to work. And sure enough, at my first job, real job, 14 years old, to pay off that car. I skipped wrestling season a couple years to pay off that loan. And important lessons, I will say that, because my credit score, and I used to laugh, I used to think that this was just a made-up number that nobody cared about. It is a made-up number, but a lot of people care about it, it turns out. And without those lessons that early in life, Denny, no way I'm sitting in this house that I own right now, because my credit was the only thing that really made it possible for me to be able to buy it. So, yeah, it sounds like we had similar dads in the house. Like, I'll help you with the stuff, but you're also going to put the work in.
Yep, my first loan was at about 14 too. I wanted a new trombone. And that was my first bank loan that he signed for me.
Really?
My first car, I paid $185 in my used 10-speed for.
That's a hell of a deal.
And Dad and I worked on that thing for like 6 months, and I was so proud when I drove it to school. First day of school, my junior year, I guess it was. It was 3 coats of candy apple red, 2 coats of clear lacquer on top of that. It was a 1961 Austin Healey Bug-Eye Sprite. Little British Roadster.
Yeah.
Cool little car. You had to tinker with it all the time and stuff. And, I didn't keep it long. Dad actually bought it from me because I got tired of messing with it. And I wanted something I could just get in, turn the key, and go. But, yeah, my first car I was pretty proud of.
Well, did he pay you more than $180 in a used 10-speed? Because it sounds to me like he might have made a profit on this thing.
I think he paid me like $400, but he and I rebuilt everything. The engine, the interior. He helped pay for a lot of the stuff like the new top and the new seats to get them reupholstered. And, he paid a lot into it, but yeah, he gave me more money than I paid for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a dad thing to do, right? Help you do something, put all the work into it, and then buy it from you just for the trouble, right?
He loved it. He drove it for a few years. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That was a cool little car.
That's awesome. Well, to all the dads out there, H&M Trucking and beyond, happy Father's Day from the H&M Trucking Podcast. I don't have kids. I got a couple of dogs, but sometimes I feel like the podcast is my kid. And it's a really cool privilege to get to do this podcast, and not only with you, Denny, but with all the awesome people that we operate with. And getting to talk to some family members and some people about their dads this week on the podcast has been really special. So just can't thank everybody enough for participating. And again, from us to you, happy Father's Day.
The H&M Safety Department reminds you to stay in your lane in life and in your truck. Pick a lane and stay in it for as long as you can. And when you do need to make a lane change, double check your mirrors and be sure and signal. Prepare for your drive before so you can minimize distractions. Adjust your mirrors, your instrument panel lighting, and program your GPS before you hit the road so you don't have to do it while you're driving. Avoid all distractions, like adjusting your radio, eating, drinking, other activities that take your attention away from the road. And never text or email while driving. Texting is the most dangerous distraction. Truck drivers who texted while driving had 23 times the risk of being involved in a crash or a near crash incident. Y'all be careful out there. Everybody wants you to get home safe.
Next up here on the H&M Trucking Podcast, Denny, this person is so special to us. She puts in her time and reviews this podcast every single week. She also gets us a ton of people to talk to on the podcast and has been very instrumental this week in setting us up with people that would like to deliver very special messages to their fathers for Father's Day. Please welcome back to the program, Sherry Vogler. Sherry, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we were talking just a little bit off the air about your review process for the podcast. Is it like a PG-13 R-rated thing? Like, do I have a certain number of F-bombs that we get on this podcast, Sherry? Or is it just like you wait until you have that gross feeling and that's when we cut something out?
I usually wait till I have that like kind of cringy feeling, like that might have been one too many, and then I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to cut some of this out.
Well, I'm surprised I don't give you more cringy feelings than what you have, to be honest with you. I think if we cut something every time my wife cringed about me, I would just be quiet all the time, Sherry. So I don't know how that works in your house, Denny, but I get some side eyes from time to time because this mouth on my face just never really stops.
Not so much from that, but yeah, I got a temper, and Dawn kind of puts her hand on my arm sometimes, like, calm down, honey.
Well, Sherry, you serve as that force for this podcast. You're a calming force in that we know you and your work with Eve to get us everybody here. I just want to take a moment and say thank you for all of the work you do behind the scenes. You are one of this great team of people that puts a lot of time and effort into this podcast, and for that reason, we thank you, and we're just really happy to have you here for this purpose that you're here for today.
Well, thanks. I actually really enjoy it. It's so much fun. Like I kind of went into it blind, not sure what I was getting into, but it's been a lot of fun. I enjoy it. It's something new every week.
Yeah, and it started out with a dinner and some nice drinks too, a steak dinner that we all got to kind of meet over and talk about what was going on. It's like, hey, if you want me to do good at my job, just buy me a steak dinner every time something changes, and you'll never hear anything cross at me.
But yeah, I'll be happy all the time.
Well, we'll get you hooked up next time, Denny. Next time there's a big change on there, we'll have to fly you out to Omaha and get you a nice Omaha steak dinner.
There we go. And margaritas. Don't forget the margaritas.
Well, those are coming two at a time, my friend. Don't you worry. Sherry's a margarita lady, too.
No tequila.
No tequila. Okay, sorry. I thought you were drinking a No, you were just headed to Mexico. That's right. But you weren't going to be drinking marks.
Nope, I'll drink anything else, but tequila and I had a fight one time, and it won. Jose is not my friend.
I gotcha. I've had that same exact fight with Jose. Denny, apparently you've been winning that fight all these years.
Tequila is the only thing I found I can drink after beer and then go back to beer. Everything else is like, that didn't work.
The party in the stomach is always an interesting thing to dissect, isn't it? Well, Sherry, enough with all of the fun stuff and the pleasantries. You are here today for the same reason that a lot of people are joining us on the show today, and that is because you would like to deliver a Father's Day message to your dad, and the floor is yours. Take it away.
All right. Well, I just want to say happy Father's Day to my dad. He is 90 years old. I am very blessed to have the dad that I do. He was older when I was born. I just want to thank him for everything he's done, all of the hundreds of hours of catching softballs and coaching. And, he's always that one person that if I needed something, I could go to him. I kind of grew up a daddy's girl out on the farm and on the tractors. And I think I might have wrecked one at one point, but we're not going to talk about that. And he's just been instrumental in my life and been my biggest supporter, and also my girls' biggest supporter. My oldest daughter is almost 30 and she's got kids of her own, and he's living with her and getting to see his great grandkids. And, not everybody gets that. And I think it's important to tell them how special they are and that you love them every single day. So I love you, Dad. Happy Father's Day.
That's a great message there, Sherry. We have a new addition to the H&M Trucking Podcast family here. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I can see Denny beaming with pride. So I'm going to back away from this microphone and let him tell you his news, okay?
Well, it just came, about a week ago I found out. I didn't even know my grandson was married yet. Apparently he met a gal in boot camp, which when I went to boot camp, there was no gals to meet. But anyway, they ended up getting married, and I am now a great-grandfather. So,
exciting. So exciting.
Pretty special Father's Day here on the H&M Trucking Podcast. I will say that. And, Sherry, I wanted to touch on one thing. You said you might have wrecked a tractor. I might have done a lot of things, too. As I push 40, my dad's finding out about more and more of them as we go along. When are you going to tell the truth about wrecking that tractor? Or does your dad know and you just don't want to tell us the truth?
No, he was with me. I was probably like 10 or 11, and I was standing in front of him driving. And all I remember him saying is, there's a tree. you might want to stop. There's a tree. My mom was the one we kept in the dark about things. Fortunately, she passed away a few years back, but I'm pretty sure we turned her gray from, my dad ran a park and he was the manager there, and it was like a camping park. And so, like he'd come get me and it'd be flooding and there'd be like creek water up to like my chest, and we'd be chasing picnic tables like floating by, and my mom would be having a heart attack and my dad's just like, man, it's fine, she'll be fine.
Well, you got to be tempered in that kind of flame to do as good of a job as you do with a company like H&M Trucking. There's a lot going on. It's a well-oiled machine, and having a little bit of that experience with some stressful things in your past probably helps you with your day-to-day there at H&M, huh?
Probably a little bit. I would say that my personality is very much like my dad's. He's very calm, collected. I mean, you don't want to make him mad, for God's sakes, because if you do, I've seen him mad twice in my life, and I would not want to revisit that. But my mom was a little bit more of the disciplinary one in the family, and I was an only child. So, I'd get in trouble and mom would ground me, and I'd go to my dad and bat my eyes and he'd unground me. So, I definitely knew how to work the system.
Yeah, sounds like it. I never got that fortunate. My sister figured that out, but she never shared the state secrets with me before she left for college. So I just kept I kept not playing both halves against the middle, and I lost every time because of it. So, but you know what? It sounds like the apple didn't fall very far from the tree. Sounds like you got a great dad, and we're so privileged to have you working with us here at the podcast, Sherry. We just really appreciate you coming on to share this sentiment. Denny, anything with Sherry before we let her go?
I'll just tell her I was the oldest of three, and after me, Dad said it was downhill from there.
So a couple of perfect children and me here on the podcast today, huh? Sherry, thank you so much for being here today. We'll get you back on soon, okay?
All right, sounds good, Marcus. Thanks, Denny.
See you, Sherry.
Bye.
We got another person on the line here ready to send out a happy Father's Day message. You're going to recognize this one, Denny, because he's joined us a lot. His name is Teddy Arnold. He's a driver for H&M. Teddy, thanks for coming back.
Hey, Teddy.
Hey, Marcus. Hey, Denny. Pleasure to talk to y'all.
Hey, man, we're glad to have you. Before we get to why you're here today, though, I saw something on Facebook. You're doing a little fundraiser for your birthday, huh? Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yep, it's a week ago. It's a week from today. Turning the big double nickel.
Oh, 55, huh?
Yep.
The speed limit. I like it. So,
bunch of babies.
So what's the fundraiser for, Teddy? I know it's something near and dear to our hearts here on this podcast, but I might as well let you plug it. You'll do a better job.
Okay. Well, as anybody who has heard me on the podcast before knows that Trucker Christmas Group is near and dear to my heart. They are a group of great individual drivers who have come together, who do at Christmas time a phenomenal job of helping needy truck driving families who, at no fault of their own, would not be able to have a Christmas, but with their help, they get to have some form of a Christmas. And so I have asked that my family and friends, and I've shared it on the Facebook page, that anybody who is so willing to just donate whatever they can to Trucker Christmas Group, and I hope I reach my goal of $200 to that group for my birthday. That would be if I met my goal or exceeded it, that would be the greatest birthday present I could have at 55 years old.
What a guy you are, Teddy. That's a heck of a thing to ask for your birthday, is money for something else that's a good cause. So glad that we could at least put that out there on the air here, so that hopefully you hit your goal and well exceed it, my friend, because I know that this is a year-round prospect for you with Trucker Christmas Group. We've talked to you about it on here a lot. We're going to get back into it later on in the year here and see how we can get involved, but you want to give Teddy a big birthday present, go make a donation over on the H&M Trucking Friends Facebook post that he made there. Yeah, Teddy, I'll be jumping on there as well. So happy birthday, happy double nickel to you coming up here in a week, sir.
Well, I appreciate it, and it'll be, 2 days after this hits here that my birthday will be?
Perfect.
So, yeah, this hits Wednesday, so it'll be Friday of the day of the week that this podcast airs. So
perfect. Well, why are you actually here? I mean, we talked about your birthday, but I know you got a different thing on your mind. You came to wish us a Father's Day message here on the podcast, Teddy, and now it's your turn, man. Take it away.
Well, 55 years ago, I was my father's fourth Father's Day gift. He had three children before me, and I was number 4, and came just before Father's Day of 1969 to him. So I couldn't ask for a better father. I went down Memorial Day weekend and spent some time with them down there in Texas and reminisced and had some great times. And I'm sad to report that I don't like to say it, but I really don't think he's going to be with me much longer. He's 87 years old, and his COPD is just terrible. And I pray that I have many more, but if this is my last one with you, Dad, and I will be sharing this with you, happy Father's Day. I wish I was better when I was growing up. I know I was a shit. And you gave me your forgiveness when I was down there for everything I had done in the past. And I'm proud that I'm able to show you what I've become.
That's a great message, Teddy. And, we're going to pull for your dad here too. All the good thoughts and good juju and prayers headed out to you. I know COPD is a real tough one to deal with. And I just hope that your dad is doing all right most days, if not all days. And can't thank you enough, man, for coming on here and sharing such a special message. I did want to ask you if it's okay. You said that you'd kind of apologized to him over Memorial Day. Is that something that had been sitting on your mind for a while, something that you wanted to do, apologize to your dad for being a little bit of a pill as a kid?
I have apologized numerous times, and he's always said, I understand, and, I get it. But I just didn't let it lay with that. I actually went into detail of, laying out all the wrongs that I had done, stealing his pickup truck and stealing money from the family business. And I broke it all down, and, I said, look, I know now what hell I put you guys through, and I apologize. If I could go back and erase time and do everything all over again, it wouldn't have happened.
Well, that's a tough thing to bring yourself to do with anyone, and I imagine even more tough with a father or a mother. And props to you, Teddy, for doing that. I have a very close relationship with my dad, Denny. I know you do as well. And as age starts to creep in, it becomes one of those things where you really cherish the moment every single time. Denny, I know you make time for your dad just about every month to get over there and see him, if I'm not mistaken. And you're making the most of those moments. I know that for sure.
Yeah, and Dad's almost completely deaf, and so it's hard to carry on a conversation, but he always tells me when I'm there, he says, son, I know I'm not entertaining and it's kind of boring, but I truly appreciate you just being here. And by the way, Teddy, over the last 15 years, there probably been a half a dozen times that we meaning me, my sister, and my brother, we've thought that we were going to lose Dad. We were really close to it. There were a few times that we were actually on the verge of finalizing the funeral arrangements and stuff. And he's bounced back. And the one thing that's been consistent about each one of those times two things. First of all, making sure he takes his medication, because he likes to go pick and choose. And we'll find a Ziploc baggie full of the pills. He said, I don't feel like taking these today. That. And the second thing is, and more so, is the nutrition. He wasn't eating well. He wasn't getting the nutrition that he needed. So with those two things happening, he's bounced back, and he's doing better now than he has in 10, 15 years. So, don't give up hope on your dad. He may bounce back too.
Oh, I'm not, because come September 23rd, my parents will be married,
let's see, they were married at 67, so that will make it 58 years.
Wow.
Am I right?
Yeah, I think so.
With my math? Yeah.
You're asking the wrong guy about math. So, yeah, I'm just going to tell you you're right because that's the only way I can help here.
Well, I'll be 55, and yeah, so it'll be 50. Yeah, I'm right on my math. Yeah, got it right. So
you're not giving up hope. It sounds like you're not giving up hope.
I'm not giving up hope. I mean, my mom's right there by his side. She makes sure that he, his pill minder is filled, and he's got his alarm set to take his pills when he's supposed to. And she makes him great meals constantly. And I mean, when I was down there Memorial Day weekend, let's see, first night I was down there, we had hamburgers. Then she made a pot roast. Then we had gone over to Port A, and she had bought 2 pounds of jumbo shrimp and made shrimp skewers one night. And then she made
Bubba.
took the leftover pot roast and made beef and noodles. And yeah, I mean, we ate. Then the last night I was there, we had steak. So
perfect.
I mean,
we should all be so lucky to be eating steak that late into life, and not only that, but having somebody make it specially for us.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, we had a great time. I was able to go out. Denny, me, and my dad went over to Goose Island, and we went fishing. We got lots of nibbles, and the only thing I caught was, I can't remember what species of catfish it was, but it had like a giant sailfin on the back of it. So,
channel cat, maybe?
No, it wasn't a channel cat. God, I wish I could get in my Texas water species thing and tell you the exact thing. But it's specifically a saltwater catfish. Didn't know they even had such a thing.
Interesting.
But it was only maybe 10 inches long, and they got to be 14 inches to keep. So tossed it back, but had a great time. I mean, they made some more memories. Memories I'll never lose. So
that's what counts. That's like my granddaddy. I never was much of a fisherman. He loved it. He'd take me all the time, and he always told me that's why they call it fishing, not catching.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hunting. It ain't killing. It's hunting. You got to go out there and find them. It's the same principle. Well, listen, Teddy, I got to thank you again, man. It's always a pleasure to get on here and talk with you. You are always concerned with something that isn't yourself, and I really do. I love that about you. I commend that about you. You're a great person, and everything that you've told us here about your dad today, I really hope that he gets to hear it when you share it with him, and he's as touched by it as we are for having you come on here and just share this with us. It's been great having you as always, and we look forward to the next time you join us here on the show.
All right. Well, you two don't be a stranger.
You know it. Well, I don't know. Now that Denny's lived with me as not a stranger for as many months as he has, I think sometimes he thinks about maybe putting his phone on mute, Teddy. I can get pretty chatty from time to time, so be careful what you wish for, buddy.
I could do a segment with you every week. I'm sure I could. So
awesome. Well, we might have to see if we can make that happen in the future, Teddy. As I said, we love having you on here, and we'll get you back on again, sir. You just be safe out there. And give your father our best here from the H&M Trucking Podcast, okay?
Absolutely. You guys have a great week. Talk to you. I'll talk to you when we speak again.
All right. Sounds good, Teddy. Take care.
Teddy.
Well, Denny, very excited about this next guest here, making their very first appearance on our podcast for a very special reason. And actually, I've got a little bit of a surprise for her here because we actually did some digging and found out that we have a birthday to celebrate here as well. So please welcome to the H&M Trucking Podcast, the family of James Fonda. Here with me today, I have Leslie Fonda, Charlie, and Stu. Thank you so much for being here today, Leslie.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And happy belated birthday one day late. We should have got you on the schedule yesterday. We could have made this one big party.
We could have. That's okay. Thank you so much.
Did James take care of you on your birthday last night?
Yes, he was Great. We had friends and family over for dinner, and we went to the pool and swam yesterday. It was a good day.
Oh, wow. Stu, did you have fun at the pool? Did you jump in? Did you do a cannonball? Did you play some games?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay. No? What did you do, Charlie? Did you enjoy the pool?
No, she stayed home and took a nap.
Oh, okay. Good.
I
Naps
like
are good.
her. That's my kind of girl.
Yeah.
I like my naps.
Hey, Stu, can you tell me why you think your dad is the best dad in the world?
Why is Daddy the best? Thank you for your input. What do you like about Daddy? Does he come home and play with you? What else, Stu? Okay.
Okay, we're a little...
He throws you up in the air. Yeah. He lets
Charlie, do you like it when your dad throws you up in the air, Charlie? Yeah, is that fun? And tell me, Charlie, how much do you love your dad?
You love Daddy?
Daddy.
Yeah.
Do you love him this much? Yeah, you love him that much? Wow. Well, Leslie, like I said, I know that this is a little bit like running a very big business. This keeping the kids all wrangled and everything like that. And you have a very important part of the job here today. Wishing James Fonda, president of H&M Trucking, a happy Father's Day. And I want to give you an opportunity to do that too with the kids. The floor is yours. You can say anything you'd like.
Oh boy. Well, we love James very much, don't we? We love Daddy. Dicky! He's the best, isn't he? Dicky! Yes. He's very patient and he's lots of fun. Yeah. I don't know what you're saying. He's lots of fun. We look forward to when he comes home every single day. Daddy. A lot. What about Daddy? What's your favorite sport to play with Daddy?
Hockey and soccer.
Yes.
Hockey and
usually a
soccer.
hockey, soccer, football game, something going on downstairs when James gets home. Yeah, lots of baseball around here.
And is your dad good at hockey and soccer and baseball, Stu? Does he teach you how to play?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. That's a really cool hat you have on there, Stu. I like hats.
Daddy.
This is his swim team hat.
Awesome. That's very cool.
Yes.
Well, Denny, before we let the Fondas go here, is there anything you'd like to ask Leslie or the kids?
Well, maybe she wants to say happy Father's Day to her dad, because he was like a dad to me when I hired on. I mean, still think fondly of those days before he gave it up and finally decided to relax a little bit.
Yeah, Dad's the best. We wish them both a very happy Father's Day. We're very lucky. Can you say happy birthday, Captain and Daddy? Captain and Daddy? What?
Well, it sounds like everybody's very excited for Dad to get home tonight. And Leslie, Charlie, Stu, we really appreciate you coming on here and sharing a bit of time with us today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to wish James a happy Father's Day here on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Charlie. Bye, Stu. What a special episode of the H&M Trucking Podcast. Episode 63 here will live in my memory as one of my favorite. All right. I said it on this podcast. You guys know it because I mention him all the time. My dad is listening as I say this, and he is one of my best friends in the world, one of my closest confidants. And if he hadn't have put up with the circus that I was as a child, who knows where I would have ended up. I'd probably be doing a podcast on a street corner without any technology and plus or minus pants. I can't tell you, but it would have been bad. And so I owe my dad a lot. And I just want to cap this off with another happy Father's Day to you, Les. And then I got to get into thanking everybody that came on and shared their time with us to make this so special. Sherry Vogler, fantastic message to her father. Happy Father's Day to him. Teddy Arnold, happy Father's Day to his dad. He's dealing with COPD, but we're sending him all the good thoughts and prayers and making sure that he stays healthy. Leslie Fonda and Stu Fonda and Charlie Fonda for coming on here and wishing James a happy Father's Day. That was a fun one. Anytime we get kids involved on this podcast, we always end the day smiling. Angela Thomas hid from Chris in a truck stop so that she could wish him a happy Father's Day on this episode. That's not something you hear of every day. Brian Whitesides with a very heartfelt message to both of his late stepfathers. Happy Father's Day to both of those gentlemen up in the sky as well. And of course, to Denny's dad, who I know is very important to him. Happy Father's Day. And happy Father's Day to everyone out there that deserves to hear it from the whole team behind the H&M Trucking Podcast to you. We are very appreciative of all the great dads in our lives. And that can run up to, 3-4 generations alive at once in Denny's case. And it's just really cool that we were able to do this here on this podcast today. We get the freedom to move around within the lines a little bit here, and we used it to the best of its ability today. Happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. I hope it was a good one. And I guess the last thing I've got to say here is stay fresh, dad bags. That didn't sound very good. Stay fresh, cheese bags, and I'm sorry.
Thank you for listening to the H&M Trucking Podcast. Please leave a review, subscribe, and connect with Marcus over at the H&M Trucking social media channels. And if you're considering a job at H&M, find us at hmtrucking.com. Until next time, stay safe and ahead of the curve drivers.